Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Japan and we're going to have a look at a brewery that I first introduced you to here on the channel about a year ago, and these guys have been doing some really nice IPAs in recent times, so it's definitely cool to return to this brewery after quite a little while. For this one then we are going to go to Yamanashi Prefecture, which is out to the west of Tokyo, and we're having a taste of my second beer from Uchu Brewing. This one is called The Sun and it comes in at 7.5% ABV. Apparently it is a West Coast style IPA, this one, so really curious to see how it turns out. The last beer that I had from this brewery was the Aldebaran, if I remember the name correctly, and that was a New England style triple IPA coming in at 10%. It was a bit of a monster, but it was really quite nice. So definitely curious to see how they do when it comes to the other side of the IPA spectrum, and hopefully you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. Definitely cool to return to Uchu Brewing after quite a bit of time actually. This is yet another beer that was kept aside for me by my good friend Koji at liquor shop Asahiya in Taishibashi, Yamaichi, Osaka. Make sure you check out the link to his Facebook page in the video description below. He's got some awesome beers there, really nice guy running the store along with his daughter Rika, so make sure you go and check them out if you find yourself in Osaka. But anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Uchu Brewing before. Hopefully I can continue to add some more to that list in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Japanese beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to very regularly, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Uchu Brewing then, so on to my brewery notes. So Uchu Brewing, as I've told you before, were founded back in 2017 by Masahiro Kusunose and Rumiko Suzuki. They both came from a background in agriculture, and they first encountered craft beer on the US West Coast, and then they found that they loved the different kind of personalities that each brewery had, and they wanted to bring this kind of culture, if you like, back to Japan with them. So the first thing that they did was to plant hops on their farm, and they have their own hop fields right next to the brewery, and they often hand pick the hops that go into their beers. So Masahiro is the main brewer, and Rumiko mainly does the marketing and business side of things, but does also take part in the brewing and the farming side of the company. But they've now built their own brewery in Hokuto in Yamanashi Prefecture, and a substantial amount of the funding for this brewery building has come from crowdfunding, because a lot of people in the local area really wanted a little brewery, and they also really liked their beers as well. So this is a brewery that has grown through crowdfunding, which is pretty cool. That must be one of the first ones in Japan to do that actually. But the name Uchu Brewing literally means space brewing, and as a result most of their beers are named after space themes, hence the sun. There's also a moon beer as well. The Aldebaran was named after one of the big stars and things like that. There's Milky Way IPA I think as well. You know, they've got some cool names for their beers, and with me being an astrophysicist or astrochemist, I guess you should say, spectroscopist basically by trade, it's definitely a cool brewery to review beers from. So yeah, like I say, they've been getting a lot of plaudits when it comes to IPAs and things recently, and they're fairly prolific as well. Koji seems to get new beers in from these guys every sort of 2 or 3 weeks actually. But they have, according to Untappd at the moment, as of December 2019, sorry, when I'm filming this review for you, they've produced around 30 different beers actually. But definitely worth trying some from. Mainly it's IPAs you're going to find from these guys, but there are a few other things dotted in there as well, so check them out if you get the chance. Their beers are very popular, so you might find them a little bit hard to come across, but luckily Koji keeps some of these aside for me, so always good. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Uchu Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages for information on all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So the stuff on the side here tells you a little bit about the beer, but that is also available on the Untappd page. And basically what it tells you is that this beer has Citra hops in it, and it also has a Canadian ale yeast. From what I understand, the Sun IPA has been produced a few different times. There was a batch which I believe was number like 78 or 73, I forget, but this particular batch is 109, and I think they change there's a new Untappd listing for each different batch of this, and basically they just tinker with the recipe. But it's a plain bottle cap on this one. And where was the symbol? The Uchu Brewing symbol. This artwork on this one is a little bit different compared to some of the others. Most of the other artworks you'll find from Uchu Brewing are sort of black and white, but this one is quite colourful, obviously, because our sun is very pretty. But there you can see Uchu Brewing on the label there. This is a nice little 330ml bottle. This kind of bottle is quite common for craft breweries in Japan, actually. But like I said to you at the start of the video, a 7.5% West Coast style IPA, this one. So without further ado, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting. And as I say, really curious to see how this particular beer turns out. So let's get it out and into the glass then. I think this is going to be pretty damn nice. I've got my little furry friend sitting next to me again in this video. He's sitting snoozing away but lifting his head whenever there's a little noise, like the bottle opening and stuff. But yeah, no sediment left in the bottle with this, and look at that, that's a lovely looking West Coast IPA. So as you can see with this beer, it's poured a lovely, this is quite a yellowy, kind of almost pilsnery coloured IPA. If I hold this up to the light, definitely nice and golden straw coloured. There's a solid there's a solid finger of a frothy, I would say slightly creamy coloured head on this one, but it looks very, very nice. If I put my fingers behind the glass there, you can see this beer does have a degree of transparency to it. It looks very, very nice, I have to say. But yeah, this isn't out of the realms of possibility for a West Coast IPA. Usually you expect these to be kind of, sometimes they can have a little bit of haze to them, sometimes they're kind of this level of see-through, but you know, this beer definitely looks like a West Coast IPA, although most of the ones that I've come across before have been a little bit more kind of ambery in colour than this one. But yeah, it definitely looks the part, so nothing overly surprising about the appearance of this beer when you consider that it is a West Coast IPA. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on with this one. That smells nice. To me, this beer comes across as quite old school. You know, obviously in Europe now, most of the IPAs and things, most people are doing West, you know, the sort of hazy New England IPAs. In Sweden, we have the West Coast Swedish IPAs, which are, you know, sort of, they've got the sort of mouthfeel of the West Coast IPAs a bit, but they have a bit of the haze that you'd expect of the New England IPAs. But to me, this comes across as a really nice old school West Coast IPA. You're getting the Citra hop out of this straight away. Juicy mangoes, quite a bit of gooseberry coming out of this one in my mind, and the lychee that you can sometimes get as well. So nice, nice sort of mango base. A little bit of a kind of papaya note as well, to be honest. But I'd say that the lychees and the gooseberries are really quite prominent in this one compared to other Citra beers that I've had before. So yeah, the fruity side of this one is really quite nice actually. In terms of the green side of the hops, I would say there's a little bit of grassiness to this one. There's not too much in the way of a floral character. I'd say the green side of the hops in this beer is definitely, are definitely more kind of, they're definitely more sort of green and it's definitely more grassy rather than floral, I think. So yeah, it does have quite a nice little bit of freshness to it in my mind. Yeah, that's a really nice smelling beer, I have to say. In terms of the malt base, it comes across again really quite nicely. I wouldn't be surprised if it's German malt that's in this. There is something that smells distinctively sort of European about this beer. The aroma that comes out of this one actually reminds me quite a lot of the Malmö taproom beers that I've had. It smells a lot like some of their IPAs. So you've got a nice kind of smooth white bready base to the beer. There's a little bit of a kind of biscuity quality in there as well. I don't think there's anything that's quite sort of caramelly. There's maybe a little bit of that, but it's quite yeah, it's kind of biscuity. It's a little bit sort of boozy. So I mean, the aroma that comes out of this smells a little bit like some of the sort of triple IPAs that I've had from the Gothenburg breweries recently. It really has a little bit of that kind of Malmö taproom, kind of fresh Swedish West Coast, kind of hazy IPA type quality to it. It really smells very nice. It's interesting to find a beer that smells like that from Japan, of course, because most of the IPAs that you find over here, Uchu, of course, are starting to do the New England Hazies. Isakadoya are doing those as well. But if you go to the likes of Shiga Kogen beer, these guys are mainly doing the kind of West Coast IPAs, and a lot of other breweries are kind of still sticking to the West Coast IPAs and using a little bit of a kind of sake brewing technique, putting little bits of sake rice and stuff in the malt base. This one it smells like some of the Swedish IPAs that I've had. So this is a really interesting one to come across, actually. So yeah, take a little bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of this beer before you get stuck into it. I think this one smells really very Scandinavian almost, so yeah, interesting one to encounter. But yeah, let's leave it at that for the aroma and have a taste of this beer then. So this one is the Sun, a West Coast IPA coming in at 7.5% ABV using Citra hop and apparently a Canadian ale yeast strain as well, coming to you from Uchu Brewing in Yamanashi Prefecture out to the west of Tokyo here in Japan. Let's get stuck into this one. Slanju, skull, thank you again to Koji, Kampai. Oh yeah, that's a really quite nice IPA, this one. I mean, first impression is that it's quite, it really is quite sort of drinkable. It's it reminds me a lot actually of some of the German IPAs that I've had. You know, a lot of these breweries in Germany now, you've got the likes of Kamba Bavaria, Frau Gruber as well. You know, these guys are doing some really interesting IPAs, and it has, this beer is almost like a West Coast IPA, but it has a little bit of a German malt base to it. That's how I would kind of view this one. It's not, it smells like some of the Swedish ones I've had, but the German, it really reminds me more of some of the German beers that I've had previously, the Frau Grubers and Kambas and Genstallers and things like that. But yeah, it's definitely got a little bit more of the kind of West Coasty sweetness to it in the malt base, and I really like that. I've been missing that with my craft beers recently. This is a beer that definitely takes me back a few years, you know. This is a kind of slightly more old school IPA, and as I say, I've been missing that in recent years. So thumbs up to Uchu Brewing. I think they've got a solid beer here actually. So let's try and break down the flavour a little bit then. So middle of your palate, you're going to feel that nice kind of white bready base to this beer. That blankets the middle of your tongue. The further that you go into the aftertaste, it's going to get a little bit more kind of sweet and biscuity. You can feel there is a little bit of a sweet caramel in the middle of your palate, but as you move out from the centre of your tongue, it gradually gets a little bit more kind of biscuity and sort of grainy, if you like. So I like how it makes that transition, but you've got a nice kind of smooth base to this one. I don't think there's any Pilsner malt in here. I've noticed that in Europe recently there's a bit of a craze with adding a bit of Pilsner malt to the IPAs just to make them that more kind of that little bit more crisp and drinkable, but this one is very kind of straight up and quite smooth actually, and I like that about this beer. Yeah, that's nice. I mean, as I say, if you get the chance to try this beer, I think you will enjoy this. It's definitely cool to try another Japanese take on the West Coast IPA, and this one is really nice. Like I say, it's got the sweetness you'd expect of, say, the Sculpin from Ballast Point. Of course, that's one of the benchmarks, or the Sierra Nevada Pale or whatever. It's definitely got that, but it's just got a little bit of German smoothness and breadiness to it, which is nice. The Japanese, of course, when it comes to the little local breweries, a lot of them will brew German styles of beer, the Alts, the Kulschis, the Weizens. Some of them will brew the Schwarz beers and things like that as well, which are really nice. You get Dunkels and Helles here as well. So yeah, it's not surprising to find a little bit of German influence in this beer. I think it's probably German malts that they're using, like I said. But yeah, there might be a little bit of American Turo in there as well, just going by the way the biscuity flavours are coming out. I'd be very curious to know what the malt base is in this beer, but the main point is this is a really, really solid beer. So let's move on to the hoppy side of things then. So yeah, hoppy side of things. This beer, in the back corners of the palate, there's a teensy little bit of earthiness there, but that's very, very minimal. As you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, it gradually evolves to be a little bit more floral. On the front corners of the palate you get a little bit more of a kind of floral aromaticity out of this beer. Then round the very front curve of the palate it's a little bit more lighter and grassy. Then behind the front curve of the tongue, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer. And you know, this is where the citra hop really starts to shine. So if you go to the back of it, you get a little bit of a sort of, you know, one of those stronger kind of passion fruity, you do get a little bit of a stronger kind of passion fruity note to this beer. Moving further forward on the tongue, you get a sort of more mango quality out of the beer, and that's what you kind of associate always with the citra hop. The citra hop for me is a big mango and sort of complex fruity quality. Moving further forward from that, almost onto the tip of the tongue, you get a little bit of a kind of papaya type note on the beer, and then right on the tip of the tongue it's a little bit more sort of gooseberry and lychees, if that makes sense. So there's a really interesting fruity kind of aspect to this beer, but this is a very, very solid West Coast IPA. This beer is one that really takes me back a few years, but I really like that. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this beer again. It really is very nice. And I guess it's cool to try something a little bit more sessionable from Uchu, because the one that I had before, the Aldebaran, it was a good beer, but it was just an absolute beast, you know, it was a monster, that thing. So yeah, cool to try something that's a little bit more sessionable, and I'm curious to try some of their other beers as well. But as far as West IPAs go, in terms of flavour profile, this one is really nice. It has the malty sweetness you'd expect. And it has everything you would want from this kind of style, but it's got a little bit more of a kind of German breadiness compared to some of the American ones that I've had, but a solid take on the style in my opinion. Big thumbs up to Uchu Brewing for this beer. I really like this, so try it if you get the chance. I'm not sure how easily you're going to find this beer outside of Japan right enough, but this is a brewery to watch out for in the future, definitely. Hopefully we can see these guys at some of the European beer festivals and starting to make their name a little bit. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say this beer, it's mid-bodied, it's at the bottom end of mid-bodied. Carbonation is very smooth. The mouthfeel overall, it's got a little bit of an oily character to it. It's quite smooth generally, but quite a It's a kind of smooth and slightly oily IPA, this one, generally, I would say. It comes across as very clean though, and I mean, in Japan you are going to get very good water, particularly in that region. I'm not sure if you can technically call Yamanashi Prefecture, sorry, Tohoku. I'm not sure, but that Tohoku region is very, very well known for its water and its sake brewing, of course. Wherever there's good water, there's good sake as well in Japan. But this beer comes across with a nice, really clean mouthfeel to it in my mind. In terms of the hoppy bitterness, I think we're talking maybe about 50 IBUs with this beer. Actually, maybe a bit more, maybe like 65, 70, something like that. Yeah, because you really get the hoppy bitterness a little bit more in the aftertaste with this one. But the malt base, like I say, very nice and smooth, and that lingers into the aftertaste, but you get a bit of that sweetness in the middle of the palate too, the biscuity kind of caramelly notes, and you've got a lovely juicy and oily fruity character to this. The fruitiness gets a little bit dry the further you go into the aftertaste too, but I mean overall this is a really nice take on the West Coast IPA. If you like, you know, if you like your German brewed West Coast IPAs, this one, that's what this one really reminds me of, is the likes of the Frau Grubers and the Genstallers and things like that. It's got a little bit of that almost German Helles breadiness to it, but then everything else about it is, you know, like Skulpin or Sierra Nevada. It's kind of like that for me. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this. This is a really nice take on the West Coast IPA, and these guys are really showing you the kind of new wave of Japanese craft brewers, if you like. So definitely a brewery that you want to check out if you get the chance. So yeah, let's leave it at that. The Sun IPA batch 109 coming in at 7.5%, a West Coast style IPA from Uchu Brewing in Yamanashi Prefecture, out to the west of Tokyo in Japan. A really interesting brewery, and one that I'll definitely be keeping an eye on. Hopefully I can film another review from these guys before I head back to Sweden in January. But I hope you've enjoyed returning to this brewery. I was very excited to try another beer from these guys, and it's turned out to be very, very nice. So yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Uchu Brewing as well, and let me know if you've found these beers abroad. I'd be very curious, pardon me, to know about that. But definitely a Japanese brewery that you want to keep an eye on. And check out my social media, and we'll definitely return to this brewery at some point in the future. So this was the Sun IPA, a West Coast style IPA at 7.5%, batch number 109 from Uchu Brewing in Yamanashi Prefecture, out to the west of Tokyo here in Japan. Until the next time, Slanja just now, and I'll catch you guys very soon. More Japanese beer reviews to come. Slanja, Skull, Kampai, make sure you check out Uchu Brewing, and liquor shop Asahiya in Taishibashi, Maichi, Osaka. Skull.